Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Girl of Gen Z podcast. I'm your host Clarissa, and joining me today is Shannon Rugani, also known as Empress. Today, Shannon shares with us what it was like being one of the youngest members of the San Francisco Ballet and performing with the ballet for 11 years. As her talents developed, she did move to New York City, where she performed on Broadway as the lead in the Tony Award-winning production of An American in Paris. As of late, she has moved into singing and songwriting, but admits she will never stop dancing. Before we go ahead with the episode, if you could kindly take 2 minutes to rate this podcast 5 stars and leave a review on the podcast app, that would be very much appreciated. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if you could give the video a quick thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, I will forever be grateful. As always, the timestamps of the topics we cover in the episode will be listed in the episode show notes. But without further ado, let's get on into the episode. Welcome to the show, Shannon Rugani, aka Empress. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Where are you located right now?
I am in California. We just moved from San Francisco to Larkspur. So we're actually in like Marin County, which is beautiful today. Gorgeous.
What's the season like?
This is like the nicest time of the year in the Bay Area. It's like our Indian summer. So we actually have sunny, beautiful days like every day. It's perfect. It's like 80 degrees and all the fires are out. So that's great too. So we don't have we had a couple days where it was just like orange skies, like scary skies. So we're really grateful to have a blue sky today. We'll never take that for granted ever again.
For sure. And how did your move go to the new place?
It was okay. Yeah, it was a little rough. But moving is always hard. I've been in San Francisco for 18 years. So kind of moving out of the city was, that was sad and emotional, and then it's beautiful here, so it actually made it much easier. It's not like it was a downgrade or anything.
Right. Do you feel like you're all settled now, or do you still have quite a bit of unpacking?
Like as of this afternoon, I'm doing my last load of laundry, and now I'm like, we're unpacked.
What
is
a good
so
feeling.
Nice. It's amazing. Yeah. So I'm super happy. I had the deadline with our interview today, and I just like hung everything on the walls, and now we're good. So fun.
Such
now
a relieving feeling. Yeah, for sure. And towards the end of the week too, you're like, oh, now I can just enjoy and
totally.
start this journey.
I know. It's awesome. So thanks for asking that.
So let's start with your upbringing. I know you just kind of touched on a little bit now. Mm-hmm. So where did you grow up, and then where you're living now, and kind of how long were you at each place?
Yeah, so I grew up in this place called South Lake Tahoe, California, which is this mountain town, and I grew up playing tennis and skiing and biking and swimming, and it's just like this gorgeous it's a tourist town, so there's really not like people, when they hear that I'm from Lake Tahoe, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that people actually live there. So growing up there wasn't very much ballet training or dance lessons. Really, it was like there's few dance studios and dance schools, and piano lessons and things. We had one really amazing teacher that we finally found when I was like, I want to say 8 or 9, who was like Mary Poppins. She was the nicest person in the whole world. She made practicing so fun. It was so great. And basically my music and ballet kind of took me to San Francisco. So I auditioned for San Francisco Ballet School when I was how old was I? I was like 13. And I got a full merit scholarship to go to the summer intensive. And then they asked me after the summer intensive, they asked me to stay year round, which I did. So I actually moved in with my grandparents, who are about an hour and a half away from San Francisco, for a year, and commuted in. And it was like, that was an amazing year. And it was also super challenging, because imagine like 3-hour transportation daily.
Absolutely. Was
on
that
trains,
just
everything.
Summer intensive, or was that?
That was for year round. Yeah.
Okay.
That was intense. And so, and I was homeschooled. So throughout all of this, I was like homeschooled. So I could do my homework around my dance and music schedule. And that was actually probably the reason why I could have been doing it, especially at such a young age. It's like, if you have so much on your plate, it's just harder to get really good at one thing. So absolutely. I had that schedule. We could like kind of work around my private lessons, my dance training, all that fun stuff. So I'd do my school in the morning. I'd bring whatever leftover I had on the train. I'd had bus ride and then a little short walk to the ballet school for a year. And then, thank goodness, I got hired in the San Francisco Ballet when I was like 15, almost 16. It was really exciting. So I lived in San Francisco for 18 years, really, but a little short stint in New York for like 4 years. We still have our place in New York. I mean, obviously, we're not like, hey, it's 2020, so we're not really going to travel right now. But we have a place in New York, which we love, and now we're in Larkspur. That's like my whole, my landmarks of where
Wow.
I've lived growing up.
And did any other ballerinas come from the town that you grew up? Or no, you were like the
No,
only
I
one?
think I'm still, yeah, like I'm the only one that's ever really made it out of that small town. Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Well, let's
Yeah.
start with how old were you when you started dancing? And then
Yeah.
what genres did you eventually kind of grow into and
hmm
do?
So I loved any kind of dance, and there really wasn't that much ballet, to be honest. In Tahoe, there'd be like maybe a couple a week or something. And if you really want to get good at ballet, you have to do it every day. I mean, it's just like that's just the way it works. So instead of doing ballet at first, I just would do anything that they offered. And so it was like, okay, I have 3 ballet classes a week. That's fine. But in between, I'm going to take a jazz class, hip hop, river dance, like lyrical, modern, all the things that the tap even. It was just really fun because there was a limitation on like because I really loved ballet and I knew that's kind of what I wanted to do. But I mean, ballet was explained to me once like it's the tabletop of dance. Like if you can do ballet and you have that structure, then like you can put the salt, pepper, plates, all the things, and those being jazz, lyrical, tap, everything. So if you can do ballet, you're going to be a lot better at any other style of dance because it's the hardest. I mean, I've tried everything and I'm pretty good at everything, but definitely my passion was ballet because it was the most challenging. You're always striving for perfection and which is impossible, so it keeps you going. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I started dancing when I was 5, but I cried the entire class and they kicked me out. They were like,
No.
she's not ready for this at all. So they were just like, take her home and don't come back until she won't cry like the whole time. So I always joke I got kicked out of my first ballet class. I was always a rebel or something. I wasn't really, but I just cried. I was super, it was like going from like dancing around at your home where you have this freedom to all of a sudden having structure was just like, wait, you're taking all the fun out of dance. Like, why do we have to stand in lines and, all that stuff that you don't have to do at home? So I cried the whole time. And a year later, the teacher found me, or not found me, but saw me at the beach. It was super random and also a small town. So classic. And she sees me. Um, with my family and she goes, oh, you look old enough to take dance classes again, right? Like I think it's time for you to come back. And my parents enrolled me and they say that was like they lost me that day. I was just that's all I could do. That's all I wanted to do. I was that little kid that was just like I had I was naturally gifted in a lot of ways. Like I'm super grateful for like having the right body type, but I was also just like so passionate about it. So like at 7, my mom asked me to write down my goals in life. Like it was so cute. I had 3 things and I wrote it down. I was like ballerina. I want to be a singer and I wanted to be an actress. So I was like very specific. I
You want
knew
to be
what
the
I
triple
wanted.
threat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I just like knew that that was what I wanted very early on. And then that's kind of just that was the track. And we kind of built as we went. It wasn't like a track that was like paved for me or, like built for me. We had no idea what we were doing. I just knew I really loved it and I wanted to do it. And my, whole life was sort of like fell into place as it went. It wasn't like I kind of knew where I wanted to go. So we had to build it to get there. So it was interesting because I had no one to look up to in my family. No one dances professionally. They're all athletes, but I mean, not ballet.
It's a little bit
And
different. Yeah. Do you
very,
have
yeah.
siblings?
Yeah. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. So I'm the oldest.
Were you all homeschooled?
We were all homeschooled,
All
but
for your whole life? Like,
my whole life I was homeschooled, but my brother and sister, they went to my sister went to middle school and my brother went to high school because they were super talented athletes, and so everybody wanted them on their teams. So it was like this hard sell for my parents, like,
I bet.
please give me your child for our tennis team or our ski team or whatever it was. It was just they were really talented. So they went to high school and at least a little bit of middle school.
So, do you
Not me.
think being homeschooled changed, might have changed maybe how you interacted with the other kids when you first got to your first dance class when you were so young? Like, do you think maybe that's
Yeah,
why you cried?
I don't know. I think, yeah, probably. I think my parents were really like, because we had so much time in the car. My mom started like driving me to all these dance classes all over the Tahoe Basin, and it was like a ton of time in the car. She started playing people skills books and like self-help books and stuff, like to help me with my like personality development and kind of understanding how to deal with people and adults and like how to
Like
have real
social cues.
conversations. Yeah, totally. Which I'm so grateful for those years. I hated it, of course, like my mom putting in a like how to win friends and influence people or something. I was like, oh, I just want to listen to Spice Girls like all day, every day. And so she would plug in these things, and it was really cool because it helped me kind of learn how to deal with human beings, which is something that we all have to do on a daily basis. And it was just a really helpful tool for me in homeschooling because it wasn't like I was like super awkward. I was pushed into, because it was a small town, I was always in the advanced classes. So I had to evolve faster because I was like 7 dancing with like the 17-year-olds. And it was
Wow.
like always like that. And I got hired in San Francisco Ballet at 15, and all the other dancers are like 30, and they're like in their late 20s. And so I was always the youngest. So it kind of, like my best friend when I was 9 was my ballet teacher, who was like 50. So it was funny because my whole, you know, like age wasn't really like it
A
wasn't a huge,
factor. Hmm.
yeah, it wasn't a huge gap because it was sort of like I was always just a sponge. I was learning from people, but I knew how to like kind of have conversations, look in people's eyes, learn as much as I could, and be just like the dry sponge that I was and absorb as much as I could from
Right.
these people.
So, when did you receive your first pair of point shoes? And then when did you
Ooh.
start point?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. I haven't thought about this in so long. Oh my gosh, good memories. I was 9. I fought so hard to get my point shoes because everyone said you couldn't have them until you were 12. And I was like
Yeah.
determined to get strong enough that they would like let me. And I finally found a teacher who would let me. And I was like, score, we're not going to tell any of the other teachers I'm doing this because they're like, your bones haven't developed
I
and
was
they
gonna
haven't
say, is it a strength
hardened. And
strength
like,
thing, right?
it's like you can have a ton of I was always more strong than flexible, so like my weakness was actually just like stretching and getting like longer and leaner. But like I had a teacher who thought I was strong enough, and I was super strong, but my bones I hadn't grown. So like when I flash forward, so I was 9 when I got them, and I was fine. Like I put them on and never looked back. It was like awesome. The one problem was my skin doesn't callus, so they always promised that I wouldn't get blisters. I was like taping and putting band-aids on my toes until I retired. Like
Oh
this
my
is like the
God.
whole career. 'Cause they told me this would happen and it just isn't. But my toes look normal now that I'm not dancing all the time. So thank you. Um, but I my foot grew a half an inch after no wait, I grew a half an inch and my shoe size grew a whole size after I stopped wearing ballet shoes all the time, like point shoes. And it was like it was so weird because I was like, maybe my bones weren't developed when I was 9, and now that I'm not binding my feet every day, like they grew. It was so weird.
That is
So
so interesting.
yeah, so I don't know what that's about. And they say that your feet change and grow as you get older, which
Hmm.
they do, but like to grow a size, it's crazy. I went from size 7.5 when I first started ballet to a 9 now. Isn't that crazy?
Do you think that like always putting so much pressure on your foot and all of that
They're
stunted that
tight.
growth for a bit and then
Yeah,
just
I think
it
so.
released over time? That is so
I know.
interesting.
Don't get me started. I'm like, what? Like, is happening to my body? I'm growing. What is happening? Oh, it's so weird. I'm like, I'm too old for this, but maybe not. So anyway, there's that.
So how bad was the pain when you first started point? Did you were like, this is nothing like I ever expected? Were you icing every day?
Yeah, icing every day. Like I got an ice machine in my career because I would like fight for ice. It was so stupid. We had ice machines when I got into the company. They had ice machines, so that was awesome. And every once in a while, an ice machine would break, and I still needed my ice, and so they'd freeze it, like old school cubes in the freezer, and they'd like try and make enough for everybody. And take my normal. I'm like, I need ice, otherwise, like you will not see me tomorrow. and and it was like my ritual. And so I ended up getting in an argument with someone once. I was like, fine, I'll buy my own ice machine. And I had this damn ice machine like in the ballet. We went on a tour to Paris the year I was transitioning onto Broadway, and the tour actually was in the same theater that we were opening the show on Broadway. Like it was a what do they call it, out of towns or whatever, where you open a show before you go to New York City. You open it out of town, so it has a little bit more time to like evolve.
Okay.
And then we were opening in the same theater, so I made friends with all the crew guys. They took my giant ice machine to Paris, and then I left it there, and then I came back a couple months later to do American in Paris, which is amazing marketing. And then I made friends with the crew guys there, and they brought it back to New York. And so I had this ice machine, like, and the day that I like said goodbye to I was so devastated. I was like, you have been the reason why I danced all these years. So yeah, I iced a lot. I wrapped my toes. I did exercises. I got injured a lot, but I'd always find a really awesome physical therapist or some sort of, there was always a way. I was told several times that my career was over by injuries. And it was always a little bit more like, all right, game on. Like, let's find a way to,
Around it.
yeah, then there always is.
That's
Whether it's like a
all,
NASA
yeah.
scientist or like, you're using like space medicine, there's always a way.
Right. So how big was this ice machine that you made them transport for you?
It was like,
It
let's
couldn't have
see.
been small. Like it's probably
Yeah,
pretty big.
it was pretty big. I want to say it was like 2 feet tall, and it was like 2 feet wide because it was a big square. And then they had, it might have been a little taller than that actually. It's like 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide. It was like a big thing.
Do you still have
It
it?
was, no, I left it in New York when I left the Broadway show. I was like devastated. I was like, okay, I have nowhere to put this. There's no reason to keep it anymore because it's like I'm never gonna do a show that is this hard ever again. And so I just said goodbye and thank you to this ice machine. But the ice machine was really funny because on Broadway, the dancers would take some of the ice cubes for their drinks and stuff, which is totally fine in a normal world. But I was doing this thing, and this is the most disgusting story that I have to share because it's so ridiculous. So
I'm
this
ready for it.
girlfriend, oh God, poor thing. Sarah, God, she would take ice cubes for iced coffee, ice cubes for her cocktails at night. Like she always was stealing this ice from my ice machine. Little did she know I would refill the ice machine with my foot water. So one day she comes in. I had never known that she was doing this. Otherwise, I would obviously tell
I've
her.
told her.
She comes in after the show, and I was like, I watched her reach for the ice, and I was like, I couldn't even talk. Like it was the cat got your tongue moment where you're just like, she's not gonna know, and it's like slow motion. You're like, no. And she reaches in and grabs it, and before I could even get a word out, she like pours it in her ice and or in her cup, and she goes, "Oh, honey, I don't need Evian ice cubes. Like I'm fine. Don't worry." And I'm like, no, I couldn't even like. And everyone in the dressing room is like slow motion too. They're like, did she just know? And we all like she died when she found out that I put foot water in the ice cube machine because it just went back in my foot water the next day. I ice my feet every day.
Yeah, right. So how did all the girls in the dressing room know though? Did you tell all of them but this one girl?
Oh my God, they all saw it the same moment. Like it was one of those serendipitous, like we were all there for that one moment because she had rehearsals during the day. I think she had a understudy role or something. So she would be there without anyone else in the room and she just used the ice for months. So she was drinking my foot water for a long time.
But with everyone yelling no at the same time, were they all
Yeah,
in on it? They all knew.
they
It
all
was your
knew
foot
because
water.
they knew that
Okay.
that was my foot water. Most of them
Okay.
were like, oh yeah, wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, but like, yeah.
That is so funny. Oh my God.
And so gross. I'm like, this is my public apology to you, Sarah.
So I guess, did you ever go to like a post-secondary college or anything like that? Wow.
I didn't because when you join the company, it's a full-time job. So I was 16. I graduated high school a couple years early, and I just kind of like I would take lessons, but it would be for specific projects, or I'd take like classes to just learn about something. But it would be there's more of like a goal and oriented, like, okay, I need to learn how to XYZ, whatever. And for instance, I mean, our schedules were so crazy. People in my hometown didn't quite understand. So I remember like having this conversation with this woman, and she just had no idea that ballet is a real career, and she kept asking me like, but what do you really do? Like, what are you going to do when you grow up? Kind of was the question. I was just like, I think I make more money than you. Like, this is not a, what are you talking about? I work, all day, every day, 6 days a week, but
Like she
really
was treating it like
seven.
it was an after-school activity.
Yeah, like it's, oh, this is just an activity that you're doing or whatever, and there's no future in it. I was like, this is the dream company. Like, this is one of the top companies in the world. And,
Wow.
it was interesting because people don't really know how difficult it is or like the schedule sometimes because they just see you on stage and it doesn't look like you're sweating, but then you go backstage and there's like 60 million empty tissue boxes, drenched of sweat. So we don't make it look hard on purpose, and so people don't take it that serious. And so that was frustrating for a long time. But so going to college, they do have a program for artists to get their bachelor's degree while they're dancing, which is really cool.
Oh, okay. Did they always
So they
have that, or
have
is that like
like
a
it's
recent?
kind of new. Yeah,
Okay.
it's called the LEAP program, and it's awesome because they have one day a week, they'll have school, and then they get tons of homework that they have to do throughout the week, and they can fit it into their schedule and all the little holes that we have. But we can't really plan that far in advance because our schedule is given to us a day and a half in advance. So it's like, I mean, planning is just, you can't. So you don't know if you're
Tough
going to have a
balancing
full
act.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, pun intended, I love that balancing act. So yeah, it was really interesting because you really just don't have any foresight. You don't know if you're going to be super busy or have the whole day off. And the more I was in the company, because I was there for 11 years or 11 seasons, it was like just a long, um, yeah, long blinded career where you just don't know what tomorrow's going to be like, and you might get thrown on stage that night, and you're just always, you have to be really 100% involved in just the ballet. But now that I'm out, I'm taking engineering courses so that I can produce music, and I'm doing
Wow.
like symphony writing, and I'm doing all of these things, but and singing and acting lessons and all these different things. But you have to really, I mean, it's not like you can go to college and learn all of this stuff. It's like I learn better on the job always. So for me, I'm just like, okay, and if I have a purpose for it, like I'm going out for this huge audition, I need to learn how to do the part, then I'm going to go take an acting or singing lesson or both, or,
Whatever's needed.
really, yeah, exactly. And that's really my best schooling is actually like learning on the job or learning for a reason or something.
Yeah, I'm very tactile as well. Well, and
Mhm.
visual too. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like I learn really well with hands-on and being shown through other people's job roles and experiences and talking through the role more so than reading from a book or sitting in a lecture hall of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah, totally. Actually, my acting coach even said to me one day in a class, because I worked my ass off to get into this class, and then um, and then I was like, I sucked. I was like sucking really bad at this class. And she even said, she goes, "You're fine in privates. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, this is so weird." And she'd always blame it on my homeschooling, but I was kind of like, well, yeah, I was homeschooled. So like I didn't learn how to learn
Yeah, the
with a bunch of
reflection
other
of
people. It was like I would always learn at my own pace, which is different. I mean, everybody learns differently. So to kind of like have to learn in a group, I was kind of like,
a lot of adapting.
foreign. Yeah. It's like, do not know how to do this. And yet at the same time, I was really good with working with other people, but I didn't learn with other people very well.
So
It
how
was
did you
interesting.
combat that? Like, how did you start to adjust to working more in bigger groups or with other people as
Yeah,
opposed to just by yourself?
I think I'm I think all of the years of like the people skills training actually really did help because I can get along with people and I can like understand how to communicate with difficult personalities, and that's fine. But yeah, to learn in an environment, it was so much better with like just going into a studio. I would always like do my homework before a rehearsal. So I would actually just like take a video, go into an empty studio, watch the ballet. You flip the TV into the mirror so you can kind of like mirror the whole thing.
Smart.
Yeah, and then you just learn the ballet, and then the rehearsals were super easy. But then I just got better at learning over the years and following, and it's just you get better at it, I think, practice wise. But yeah, that's never been my strength, is learning in a group of people. Better one on one or in two or three people.
So take us through the 11 seasons of ballet. How many years is that?
That is 11 full years. And it's
Holy cow.
I know, I'm like the
Holy
Betty
cow.
Davis and
Your
like puff
poor
puff.
feet.
I
Your
know,
poor feet.
totally. I don't have any ligaments left in my ankles. Like I've had bone bruises and ingrown toenails, all the things. Like you can't even imagine. It's awful. So yeah, 11 seasons. And within those seasons, I've done like thousands of ballets and done lots of shows and worked with a bunch of choreographers and worked, more than a million costumes. It's just like the ins and outs of being in a ballet company. It was like definitely I'm really grateful that I did it first, because if I had tried to go back, it's just too hard. So you have to be young and really excited about being there, because it is. Now that I'm out of it, I have a little bit more perspective, because you're in a bubble when you're in it, and you really can't see on the other side of the
It's your
bubble, because you're
life.
like, that is
Hmm.
your life. You have to focus. It's very, it's kind of self-centered in a lot of ways, because you really do have to just take care of yourself, because no one else will do that for you. So that was really good for me, because I felt like I was always trying to help other people and do stuff, and then it would kind of put me in this position of like, well, I'd get injured or something, and then I realized, wait, if I take care of my body, I'm more useful to the company.
Absolutely.
So it's just really interesting to like kind of learn how to be selfish in the most loving way, in your career, to kind of take care of yourself so that you could take care of your company. And so like ballet career, I was hired really young. I went through puberty while I was in the company. Now that is not a fun thing. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. And
Wow.
I was severely punished for it, because it was like you're hired as a little girl and you turn into a woman, and they wanted you to be a little girl forever, because that's how they hired you. And so they do not accept the change that just happened, even though you can't do anything
Do anything
about it.
about it.
And
It's
it's
how the
like, we
body
don't,
works.
yeah, it's how and the emotional roller coaster of that is just really rough. I never got into eating disorders, because I was really grateful. I had a best friend who was a guy who was doing a raw food cleanse with his mom, who was given like she was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma and was given 3 months to live, which was super sad. But her last, resort was to try and change her diet. And he was like, "Well, I'll help you, and we'll go over recipes and we'll do it together." He lost so much weight. I mean, he was like, not just skin and bones, like, because he had so many muscles, you could see like ligaments in his arms and stuff. It was like, whoa, this is like crazy. He goes, "I can't keep weight on. You should try this diet." And I had just gotten fired for being fat, which was really, really rough. And I was like, my dream was just like getting flushed down the toilet, because I didn't look the part anymore. I didn't fit in with the other
How
girls.
old were you when that
I
happened?
was, I think
Around.
18.
And you're
Yeah.
hired at 14 or 15?
Yeah, I was 15 when I got
Wow.
hired. And so I was a little girl until like, I went through puberty at like, or I had my period at 18 and it was like my
Wow.
first period. So that was rough. So I was like 19, 18, 19 when I got fired and he came in and he was just like, I think you should try this. And I was like, okay, great. Like sold to the fat ballerina. Like that sounds great. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I actually got um on the health train and I started taking care of my body on a different level. I was eating foods as close to as nature intended, drinking tons of water. I mean, I was still eating lots of chocolates, but it was like raw chocolate and I could make this like little cookies out of like coconut and oil and like chocolate cacao and like all these things. Like I found ways to have fun with my diet. But I lost all the weight. I got my job back.
It was
I
just like
had
that? You just went
it
to them
was
and were
it
like,
was
I'm
not
good
just
now?
like that. It was like maybe 3 or 4 months of just like, okay, is this gonna happen? Am I ever gonna be like, thin enough? Because the thing that is a bummer in the ballet is there are a lot of eating disorders, and so it's frustrating when you see girls get rewarded for that, and you're trying to take care of your body and the girls that aren't taking care of their body sometimes get a better role than you and you're just like come on like oh it's so frustrating to see.
That's
But you
hard.
know what, I have to say after the 11 years that I was there, my body, it was still like, and I didn't leave the ballet. I could have come back, but I went to Broadway and I did 8 shows a week there. So I was like, and this was all a choice, right? So it wasn't like I had to quit, but a lot of my friends would only last 3 or 4 years and they would get injured and they couldn't recover because their bodies were just like not healthy, and the irony of it all is that they were hurting their bodies for this art form that ultimately will like chew them up and spit them out. And so for me, I was really really grateful that I turned to health and nutrition because ironically I was taking care of my temple and I could actually have a long career. I mean, 11 years is a really long time, and then 3 years on Broadway doing 8 shows a week, and then I still I could still go back and dance if I wanted to, and that's the beauty of it. And I don't fluctuate. My weight kind of stays the same. It was like, a lot of the girls like blow up after they stop dancing because they're like, oh my God, I can eat. And they just don't have a good relationship with
The
food and
food.
their bodies. And so it's just, and some of them get really weird diseases after like a long period of time. They're just, like cancers and all these things. So you're just like, oh, it's so sad because we're doing it and our bodies are the only thing that is our work.
Yeah.
And
It's like you're
so,
doing this job you love and they get this awful reward sometimes out of it. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
this sucks.
Uh-huh, totally. Yeah. And so I think the reward for me was just to kind of have a full healthy career and make lemonade out of lemons.
Yes, the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So who had that conversation with you about your weight gain or like your body
Oof,
change? Like how
man.
did they
My
sit you in an
director,
office?
yeah, it was awful. There were a few, like some of them are like hilarious now that I'm like looking back, like, oh my God, I lived through these like comedy of errors. There were a few of the meetings where they'd sit me down, and when I was younger, like I had no idea, and they couldn't use I say the F word, but the fat word. They're not legally allowed to call you fat because you're obviously not, by the way. Like I would go see a nutritionist and they'd be like, well, you're totally normal weight. I'm like, that's why I'm getting fired. Like, because I'm normal. Like, this is not a
I can't
place
be
for
normal in the
normal.
ballet.
You cannot. It's just not a thing. It's a visual art form. And unfortunately, like you lean more towards the skinny side. And so I was like, this is just, it was really rough. So there were a couple of moments like where my director would, he'd just be like, you just don't fit in with the other girls on stage. Or like George Balanchine, who's been, by the way, dead for many years. He's like, he would never put you on stage. It's like a way to hide behind a dead man. Like there were things said to me like, you should just really work on your muscle tone. And you'd be like, oh, so you're saying I'm fat? Great. So there was one though. We all came back from China where we all had tons of like there's MSG and everything. We got super puffy, like everyone. It was just water weight. And we did Swan Lake, so you can't really hide. There's like white
Much.
tutus. It's like, yeah. And um, the director called 10 of us into his office, and we all tried, this is great, we all tried to sit on a love seat. We all know it's gonna happen. We're like, oh, we're gonna be told we're fat again. And we're like all trying to squeeze in as if we're like not fat, you know? And it was just probably the funniest like vision
It
of,
sounds
you
like a
know,
comedy
it
moment,
was
like a
so
scene from
ridiculous. I was
a
like,
movie.
scooch over, you know, oh, your butt's too big. You know, it was like, it's not. It's just so ridiculous. So anyway, like there's been a lot of meetings that I went through because I was going through puberty, and it was just a rough time in a girl's life. And, you know, again, like I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy to go through, but I got through, and I'm really grateful. And now I want to share the fact that like nutrition saved my life, and eating foods as close to as nature intended them to be will keep you healthy, strong, and, you know, like a healthy weight, which is awesome, you know.
So do you eat meat then or no?
I do now
Okay.
because, I mean, you know, I love meat. To be honest, I was always like, I'm gonna cheat today. But yeah, probably not very often, but like I would say once a week or twice a week, I'll have like a bunch of meat of some sort, like whether it's turkey or chicken or meat or whatever, steak.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So take us a quick walkthrough of what a day would look like, when you'd have to go to class, like ballet
hmm
practice, and then when you'd have like a matinee or a nighttime show, like what the differences were like there.
Yeah. So we'd have, let's see, a rehearsal season and then a performance season.
Okay.
Performance seasons are crazy. Rehearsal seasons are pretty like they're pretty standard. It's like 10 a.m. class, company class. It's optional. I mean, optional. You don't, if you don't take class, you don't get better. So you'd never really miss. So it's like 10 a.m. to 11:15, and then 11:30 till 2:30 is rehearsal. Wait, 11, 12. Yeah, 2:30. And then you have an hour break for lunch, 2:30 to 3:30. And then 3:30 to 6:30 was the second half of the day. And that was like, I would say July through um, December was
Wow.
like that kind of schedule and it's 5 days a week. So you just still have the weekends off. And then Nutcracker comes along, and that's when the rehearsal or the performance time starts. And it gets pretty crazy. It's like 10 a.m. company class or maybe 11 or something, but then you have a 2 p.m. show and an 8 or 7 or 8 p.m. show. And then you do that for the holidays, and then you come back to your schedule and your season. And like the craziest day of my entire career was like, I think I danced um, 3 ballets or 4 ballets, 4 different roles or something in at night. And during the day, I rehearsed, I think, 12 different ballets or something. Like it was really insane. Like I went just like half-hour rehearsal here. I learned 2 or 3 parts in this other ballet. So that was like a lot. So there'd be like another hour where I'd just be like learning or dancing or something, 3 other parts. And then I go to another rehearsal, and then I didn't have a break. And then you'd have like a 15-minute nap, and then you do the show. It was like just the
How did
whole
you
day was
remember
just
all this
crazy.
choreography from
Muscle
so many
memory.
different
That's the
pieces?
only way. If I had thought about it, I would forget who I was, what I was, where I was, everything. So yeah, really relied on this like robotic muscle memory thing. Like
Like
I
your
could,
body just knows what the next.
yeah,
Okay.
so crazy. And so for me, it was like the music was always everything for me. If I was asked to do a step without music, I couldn't do it physically. And then I'd be like, can you just play the music? And I remember a teacher just being like, no, like you have to do this in silence. And I was like, if you play the music, I promise I will do this. And she'd play the music, and I'd, do it. It was just something about music. It's like I can remember ballets and stuff when I hear the music, and I don't know how, but I just do. It's amazing.
Wow.
Muscles.
Yeah, no, we rely a lot on it. So,
Yeah.
in your opinion, could anyone become a professional dancer with enough practice, or do you think some people are just hopelessly uncoordinated?
Oh, that you know what? I want to be nice and say that yeah, like with a lot of practice, you could totally do it. But um, there's this little problem that we have in the world, which is like you might not have the right body type for it, and that does suck. And it's not like weight. That has nothing to do with it. Like I kind of just proved my point is that
Mm-hmm.
the weight was actually just the thing that was keeping me like it wasn't my long, like my legs weren't long enough or my feet weren't flexible enough and my hips
Right.
weren't turned out or something. It's like in foreign countries though, they do this thing, and I used to not appreciate this at all, but now I do in a lot of ways, and I'll explain why. Is they choose the dancer and then they train them. So they like make sure they go through this like crazy audition process at like, sometimes 4 years old. They'll like look at a girl and they'll be like, or a boy, and they'll be like, oh, this girl has good feet, turnout. She's got long legs, a short torso, long neck, long arms. She's pretty, or he's handsome. And the parents they have the right aesthetic. So we know that they'll grow up and look
Wow.
kind of
They'll
like
even,
that.
they'll even look as far as the parents' genes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Like, and sometimes 2 generations. They'll like ask for
Wow.
pictures of the grandparents.
That is
Yeah. It's
nuts.
really crazy. So they're like, okay, this person has the right body type. Let's put him in ballet school and train him, and we'll give him the best training. And it's like kind of amazing because they'll come out like they're like robots, but they're amazing. Like, they're not always like robots, but they're so talented, and their technique is so clean and so built into their, like since they were like 4 years old. Um, that they're just so amazing. And then they actually have really good, because they have good technique, their careers last longer because they're not like, just they know how to
They're
use
not
their
wasting
bodies.
time.
Yeah,
Exactly.
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 So whereas I started because I loved it, and then I hit the lottery because I had the right body type, and then I'm so excited to be there, but I don't have the best training because I grew up in a small town where there's no ballet schools like studios. And so I'd get injured all the time, and like that evolution was interesting because I ended up having to kind of retrain myself later in my career, where like I was asking all of my favorite dancers if they would mentor me. And that was always really important. I think that's something that I continue doing in whatever profession I'm doing. You're always a student of life. So you always, and there's always someone who knows something that can help you. You just have to ask, and no one's going to come up to you and just give their opinions. And if they do, sometimes you have this like, nope, don't want to hear it. But the people that I really admired and respected were always open doors once I asked, and that was really special. So,
It's really
and
important.
I was just really excited that I made it from dreaming about it as a little girl. And I just don't think that happens in every country, but it will alleviate a lot of years of, like there are girls that just love it and they want it so bad, but that they're never going to make it because they don't have the right feet, turn out, they're just not coordinated, or they're not their body type's just like going to change, and you don't know what it's going to look like after puberty. It's just like sometimes it just changes, and that sucks. Or you get injured because you didn't have the turnout, so you're forcing it, so your kneecap pops off. It's like all these awful things that happen. So they do save you years of just training and blood, sweat, and tears if they do kind of like, okay, you have the right everything, check, 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 let's see if you're good, in 10 years when you when you're ready to get a job or something. And it's
Right.
timing too. It's just a crazy profession. And it's like, I think I did the math. It's like it's like 0.05% of dancers make it in the ballet world that train. Like, it's a really small number. And then the ones that actually stay for like 11 years versus like 3 years, like I am a I am a unicorn in a lot of ways. Like, hey.
So,
But
how
yeah,
many years of training does it take in hopes to see the end goal of performing in a ballet?
I
Like, do you
would
typically see?
say I would say 10 years, but there's always the unicorns there too. Like my friend Luke, he started dancing at 20 years old and was professional at like 22. I mean, so
Wow.
that's ridiculous,
Good for
and
him.
he makes everyone that worked for 10 years just really mad. But so yeah, it's I guess there are some naturals that are just amazing, but I would say 10 years.
Okay. And
Yeah.
the dancers in the ballet company, were they coming from different parts of the world? Are they all American based? Did they have like requirements that they're looking for when they're seeking out these
Yeah.
dancers?
Yeah, our San Francisco Ballet, I'm going to give like the keys to the universe right now, but like San Francisco Ballet has like a chessboard of dancers where they have like, the right amount of people to do a lot of these ballets that we do. Like, you need like a tall person and you need a short person and you need like tall guy for that person and you need a short guy for that person. And like, you kind of,
Mix and match 'em.
yeah. And it's interesting because you see one dancer leave who's, let's say, a really tall, beautiful, flexible female, and then like the next person that comes and joins the company is a tall, beautiful, flexible female ballerina. And it's just interesting because there's kind of like this formula where it hasn't really changed. Like you'll see basically, when somebody leaves or retires or something, they're like replaced almost identically. Like they even look like them sometimes,
That is
and
crazy.
they could even be from the same country. It's super weird, but you can kind of see the trajectory of your career by who you replaced. You're like, do I want that career? I don't know. It's interesting, but that took me a long time. That was my bitter Betty Davis of being like, okay, let me tell you
Yeah. I feel
everything.
like you're exposed to so much at that age, and then being
Yeah,
in the company for so long, you just like are exposed to just so many aspects of life, like the
yeah.
growth of dancers, like mentally how they're growing, like who runs
Mhm.
the company, the big decisions that are made, the
The
little details,
politics.
the
Yeah,
politics. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Insane.
You're treated or you're expected to be an adult at such a young age, and it's just like it's no matter how much you think that you are, you look back and you're like, no, I was a child in an adult environment that was run by a bunch of kids. Like it's it's so
Exactly.
it's so interesting. But yeah,
Exactly.
so I look back and like we it definitely has made every other career much easier because I've learned how to deal with the most difficult personalities in the most extreme circumstances.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So, what did your fitness and strength training look like while being in the ballet, other than
it's a good
like
question.
rehearsal?
Yeah, that was like their cross training was always helpful. We had Pilates studio in the ballet building, which was really cool. So there was always a Pilates instructor there. Like this sounds so plush, I know, but like we had like a Pilates, we had gyrotonics, we had a weight thing, we have like free weights, and we had bikes and ellipticals and treadmills and all that stuff, so we could like do extra training exercises. And my favorite was always like upright, going backwards on the elliptical. So you didn't build your thighs, you'd build like your butt muscles and your hamstrings so they'd be stronger. And it was long. So like when I did the bike, I already had a really short torso, but my psoas would like really tighten up, which wasn't good for my back because I have a little scoliosis, just like a couple little things here. So like it really would, like if I was on the bike, I'd just make my hips too tight and then it would pull my scoliosis out of whack and then it just hurt my back. It was like just, these are the you asked, so I will tell. But so I always did upright exercises, walking, treadmill, that like slow. But backwards on the elliptical that was the best. And then Pilates works for me like so well, especially knowing that I had a little scoliosis. And then my secret was I was a really tight dancer, so I had a harder time with stretching. So I would like get massages all the time to help with that because I was also too tired most of the time to
Is
like
that
really
covered by them?
stretch.
Like, do they provide you?
Yeah, in San
Wow.
Francisco Ballet, it's covered and it's amazing. That's like one of the biggest benefits of being in that company is that they really take great care of the dancers. They have a doctor that comes to the building 2 times a week to like check out, whatever injuries we have and like help us through it. And so they would come to us. It was amazing. So we had a really
Wow.
great
So everything was on
facilities and
site for the most
everything.
part.
Yeah, and we had like, a room for massage therapy and we had physical therapy and we had chiropractors that we could go to and acupuncturists and like it was really amazing because you need it to get through that career. Um, and then the more that you need it, the more that you need it. I mean, it's just that spiral. You're like, oh, now that I've gone to my chiropractor, I have to go back every 2 weeks, otherwise.
Yeah.
So it just became this like, on your day off, it's like get a massage. But it was more like taking your vitamins. It's like I'm just taking care of my body and it takes care of me in return. So
Exactly. Like you said, you need it to make it through.
yeah, totally. It was amazing.
Did you guys have a pool?
We had a hot tub,
Hot
but we
tub.
didn't have
Okay.
a pool. Yeah, I don't know. I just really am not, I'm not a good swimmer. So
Okay.
I can swim, but I'm like, Oh, that end of the lap, like the other lap, that looks too
A
far.
lot.
Like doggy paddle over there.
So, what kind of weights did they have in the weight room? Did it only go to like up to a certain amount because they didn't want you guys lifting too heavy? Like,
You
I'm
know,
curious.
that's a great question. I don't know if I ever used anything but a 5 pound weight. So I don't know. I think it would go up to like 50 or something.
Okay.
But the guys, like, there were certain times where they'd have a lot of lifting in a ballet, and they really use those weights like a lot.
I
So
completely
that
forgot
was,
that there's males in this world.
I know, right? Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
I'm just so ingrained with my like old way of thinking of like very
Yeah,
female
I love that
driven
centric.
piece,
Yes.
but I like that you mentioned that. So yeah, they
Mhm.
probably were in the weight room quite a bit. They must have been
Oh my
exactly like you
God,
just said because they're
always.
lifting.
And you just see them lifting weights because you knew that was like basically
They're
gonna be
prepping.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna row you instead of the weight.
Yeah. Every once in a while they'd ask you if you're dancing with them like a partner, they'd be like, "Hey, can I just like lift you?" You know, like they would do like lifts with you, like they'd lay you down like a board and they just do like arm like curls
Curls.
and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. And just to kind of get in shape for all the, sometimes there's like 1,000 lifts in ballets. I mean, they're like lifting over the head and they do these press lifts with one arm. And then it's like, they're just always lifting us. And then they have to slowly lower us down. I mean, it's challenging to be a female. It's also challenging to be a male. And,
Right.
you know, most of the time the ballets that we do are older. So there weren't that many males back then when they choreographed these. So there'd be like one guy part in like and 40 girls. And so the girls still kind of have it a little bit harder these days, today, I mean, only because the older ballets there just weren't that many guys. So a lot of the guys sit around in Nutcracker, for instance, and like the big ballet numbers are like Waltz of the Flowers and Snowflakes, and there's like all the girls are in those, and the guys are like, I was in Party Scene, and then that's it, you know.
Right.
So, or I was the Cavalier, and so anyway, it's an interesting, yeah, profession. It's getting more male dominated because there are more males in the ballet world now, but yeah, just
Wow.
fewer parts.
So you did your ballet go on tour then, like to different?
We did, yeah. We went on tours every year, and I mean, my first tour was to Paris. Like, you cannot complain about that. It was
Yeah, that's
awesome.
wild. How was that
Yeah,
experience like being
it
so
was
young?
so amazing. I was 16, and I was like, I'm in Paris, and I'm being treated like an adult, and I've never been overseas before. So it was like, oh my gosh, it was so cool. Um, yeah, I just was such a, I don't know, like wide-eyed girl too. So it was just amazing to be in Paris. It had a huge impact on me. Like going to Versailles, I was like, okay, dreams do come true. This is amazing. Um, but yeah, it was really cool. We've gone to China, Iceland, Denmark, let's see, all over the states, like New York and LA and DC and um, yeah, I can't remember where else we've been, but we've been a bunch of places, but it was always like a big tour, it was a big month long at least tour.
And how would they do with your diets? Like, would they plan
Oh
this
yeah,
stuff out, or would they be like,
no.
"Here's your money, go figure it out"?
Yeah,
Or
per diem. Yeah,
okay.
it was like per diem, go figure it out. And a lot of those tours, especially like China or something, I was like heavily relied on all of the food bars that I'd bring. It's like, you couldn't, I brushed my teeth with the water there and I got sick for 2 days. I mean, it was just like you just really had to like think ahead. Okay, we have to get water bottles when we get there. We have to do all that, it was just because really in Paris specifically, they don't do takeout, and that's great when you're a tourist, but when you're working there and you have an
Oh
hour break,
no.
it's like, what do you eat? And like you need it to be healthy. You can't have fried foods, you can't have like cheesy whatever because you're like, I'm about to put on a bathing suit practically, it's a leotard.
And you also don't
So
want to
it's
like
like,
throw up on stage having like this deep fried cheesy
exactly.
dish.
Oh God,
Ugh.
totally. And you also don't have 2 hours to digest it and like, it's just challenging whenever you're going on tour because you really do like they give us a nice little booklet of like all the restaurants close by, what you can do. They always send like a company manager to the location before we go so they know all of the ins and outs and like, okay, if I was a dancer and I needed food now, where would I go that's healthy, you know? And they kind of like go
That's
find the
helpful.
restaurants, put them in a book, and then so when we get there we're like, I mean, now we have Google, which is different.
Right, because at that time you probably
No, we just
didn't
didn't
have
have
cell phones.
we didn't have cell phones. I know, isn't that crazy? I mean,
Wow.
we had cell phones, but it was like the
Very foreign.
plans. It was like they didn't have European
Data.
plans or like, yeah, China even. It was like I think Skype had just come out or something, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll try that. And it was like just never worked because the Wi-Fi was slow and whatever. So yeah, it was different times. Definitely, we had little workbooks. God, I sound old. This is weird. Not that old. It's just
No.
that
It's
things have
just very,
changed
yeah,
so much in
very
like
different
the
time of
past 10
living.
years. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, like
amazing.
I can't imagine not having like my main thing for my phone is Google Maps. Like if my phone were to die and I'd be
I
in the middle
know.
of nowhere,
Oh
like
my gosh.
I'm not good with north, south, east, west.
Oh God, totally. No. And just like knowing where you are and
But you
having
had
that
to adapt.
visual.
Like you had to be able
Yeah.
to figure it out and like think fast on because like you said, you're on your hour break or whatever. It's not that
Yeah.
much time if you think about it.
No, and if you're in a foreign country, you're just like, oh
You
God.
can't speak their
And
language.
in Paris, it's so funny because everything's built in circles. So like then it's like you think you're going down a parallel
I've
street, but
been.
you're actually going like the opposite direction.
Yep.
And then it's like two sides of a triangle to get back, and you're just like, no, I'm late, you know, and lost.
I'm so confused. I thought I was going north. I'm going south.
Yeah, and somehow I went the wrong way. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Anyway, so that's
Wow.
funny.
Wow. Um, what are some of the demands on being on tour?
Well, I think that we just kind of covered that. First is food. It's like always just going to a foreign country, you're just like always afraid that you're not going to be able to find something quick and easy and fast and within your per diem price range. San Francisco Ballet gives us a lot of money, but like other companies, I can only imagine like it's you're really on a budget. So yeah, challenges of being on tour is just not having the resources sometimes. Like you don't have the ice bucket that you needed, or you don't have your physical therapist that you really rely on heavily to get through. You know, like my massage therapist was the best because he knew my body so well because I saw him once a week, you know, religiously. So when I went on tour, I was like, oh God, I have to find a massage therapist. And
They wouldn't bring one?
they were never, they brought one, but then like the schedule would get booked up and you'd need like a full hour instead of like 15 minutes or half an hour or something, you know, and it
Oh
was just
no.
like, that just doesn't do anything. So you're like sort of scrambling to find your person. Once you find them, they're great, but like, or not always, but they're usually great. But
Would you find a
there's
person local or would you have
yeah.
to?
Yeah,
Oh
like I would
wow.
do some searching. There's always other ballet companies where we would perform because it was an opera house or a big theater. So if you had friends from like ballet school that were in that company, you just reach out to them, be like, "Who is your physical therapist?" or you know, and you'd just use them while you were in
Wow. So
town,
it'd be
which
like
is
their
cool.
recommendation. You're just hoping it's
Yeah,
gonna
because
work
you're
out.
like, it's their dancer, so they did the same work in their town that I've done in mine.
Right.
So yeah, it was interesting. That was probably the most challenging. And then like uncomfortable beds sometimes you wake up and you're like, I feel injured or like I got hit by a car because this is like not my
An
bed,
awful
you know?
mattress. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How long would you sleep per night, do you think, on average, back in the rehearsal part of the
Hmm.
year? Like, do you
I
feel like you were getting
think,
enough sleep?
yeah, I'm such a professional sleeper. So I sleep for like too much time, people think, but it's perfect for me. It's like 9 to 10 hours or something.
You're
Like, is my
lucky.
like,
That's a
I
nice
love,
sleep.
I love sleeping. So yeah, I'm a really good professional sleeper. Like, and in the ballet, especially because I was like time, you know, you have an hour. I'd always like to take little naps here and there just to like restart my day and kind of like just have like a refresh. Like, okay, the first half of the day was tough, but I'm gonna take a new attitude towards the second half and I'd take a little nap. And it worked every time. It was so great. And I trained myself to like see the back of my eyelids, breathe like five really, really deep breaths, and I'd be out and I'd set an alarm for like 15 minutes and I'd wake up after that 15 minutes. I'd be like, oh, you know, like total, you know, Snow White or something. It's like, da, 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 I'm
I
ready.
wish. I guess you like trained yourself to be able to do
Yeah.
that though. Like,
Yeah.
can you do that now still? As
Oh,
like,
totally. Like, and
wow, that's
I
so
got
cool.
better on Broadway. I could have like a 3 minute nap and be like totally refreshed. It was insane. I was like, I have 5 minutes. I need a minute to go to the lay down and a minute to get back on stage. And I'm like, I could do this. And I'd have dreams. Like, it was amazing.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
insane.
It's
So,
practice. Puff, puff. You know, it takes a lot of naps.
how long did it typically take to learn the choreography for, say, a 2 hour ballet?
Oh, yeah. Well, it depends on how many people again, because like when you're learning in a herd, it takes a lot longer. So there will be like, I'll say 3 weeks of 3 hours a day for a 2 hour ballet, like Swan Lake or something. But if
Okay.
you're the lead, you kind of learn the parts. I mean, you can learn parts really quickly, but I was a really fast learner. Um, So they would throw me on. This was like a double-edged sword. I was really good at it. And once they figured it out, then they would throw me on stage for things that I was like, really like, what is happening? They would ask me to go and do something because I was easygoing and I was always like, sure, yeah, I'll do it. And then I'd think about it like after, like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said yes, you know? Um, but they had me do this part and it was just the reverse of what I knew. So it was this girl got injured and they're like, "Hey, could you do this part?" It's the exact same thing. It's just on the opposite side of the stage. It's like, "Sure, I can reverse it." Like, I had done things like that before, so I was a little bit calm and confident about it. I was like, "Sure, no problem." Show up in my costume. We were gonna have a 15-minute rehearsal before the curtain went up on stage, and I was just gonna go over a couple things with my partner and whatnot. And we realized that it's not the opposite. Every other girl had a totally different part, and they thought that I was the every other girl, and I wasn't. I was the every girl, and it was such a moment of like, okay, we
Panic?
could panic, or I could just calmly like focus in. So it was a 17-minute ballet, and we had 27 minutes to learn this whole ballet, and it was so crazy. So I got the video. I like didn't I was just like, okay, I had a ballet mistress to answer any questions that I had. It's like, okay, I'm going to learn this.
What's a
I
ballet
learned it.
mistress?
The person that rehearses you. So there's ballet
Okay.
masters, which are men, and then the ballet mistresses, which are the women.
Cool.
And
Okay.
they're the ones that come and help you learn a ballet and they'll teach it to you. So it's not always like a TV screen. But for this particular instance, I needed a TV screen. I'm like, I'm a visual person. You can't just talk me through this. I need to see the patterns
Yep.
of all of the other dancers. So I just like zoomed in, calmly focused. I just kept breathing and I got through the show. It was amazing. The curtain went up. I was like, okay, this is happening. I'm going to just, when you are the only one going on, though, like this is the beautiful part about this. When you're the only one that doesn't know what they're doing and everyone else does, you can kind of start because you've worked with the same group of people for years. You can start like trusting that they will help guide you if you're in the wrong spot and they'll go around you or like, and you don't, I mean, I didn't mess up that night really. So I was good at learning
Grateful.
at this point. Yeah, I'm like, okay, well, I didn't run into anybody, like, but which I have done before on stage, and it's always embarrassing. But that particular show is just like, okay, gotta do this, and there's no way. Like, I'm already in the costume. There's no way out of this. I'm the only one that can do it, and so I'm going to do it. There's no other choice. The show must go
Good
on,
for you. Did you
and we
tell
did it.
your the mistress after
Oh,
or whoever?
afterwards, they apologized. They're like, I am so, so sorry. Like, we had no idea, but you did great. Like, thank you
You're
so
like,
much.
I
And then
should
it
be
was like,
getting paid double tonight for that.
totally, totally, exactly. Oh man, no, that was the reward was actually I always had to do that kind of stuff, which is a blessing and a curse because you get great opportunities by being easygoing and ready to go on stage, but you also get, the extra stress of like, oh God, like I don't know what I'm doing and I'm about to run
Absolutely.
out on stage in front of thousands of people.
What a
Okay, here we
stressful
go.
moment. But you really were a champ and you took it on well. So
Thank
go
you.
you for that. Do you ever get classical music songs stuck in your head like we get pop songs stuck in ours?
Yeah, sometimes. Now I'm like, if I hear classical music, if somebody's playing, I'm like, you know, it's not as relaxing for me because it's the stuff, like it reminds me of the ballet and the steps that I had to do, and like the foot cramping moment, or like I can't listen to classical music without like having memories of like physical memories where I'm like,
Right.
oh my gosh,
Like at this
like that was
moment, this
so
happened.
awful. Yeah, totally. Oh, this one show, like a girl fell in front of me and then I tripped on her and then she tripped on me again. Like it's, the things that have happened on stage, they all come back when I hear the music. So I don't try to listen to it on purpose to get it stuck in my head, but yeah, they will. That my head doesn't stop when I'm like writing a song, or like this year for the pandemic, I was working on a classical piece that I was working on like a long time ago, but now we've had time to do all the
Come
things
back
that
to it.
yeah. So, so I worked on this song and I would like go to bed with it. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with different ideas, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have to go running back to the piano because I'm like, I'm ready. And it's only, I have to like
Get
play
it
it
out
for it to
ASAP.
get it out. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yes, and on purpose, no at the same time.
Gotcha. So, a more taboo question, I feel like a lot of people would want to know, like a ballpark. How much
Yeah.
does a professional ballerina get paid typically in this profession?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think I can honestly answer that. I think in a really small ballet company, it could be like 20, I want to say $29,000 a year. I don't know why 29 and not 30, but like I'm just going to say 29.
Okay.
Really small ballet company. That's where it's not full time.
So you
It's
have a side
probably
gig.
like, yeah, so you have like a bunch of side gigs that you're working as well. But in a full-time company, like I think I was making when I first joined like 60,000 a year, and then it went up from there to like I want to say 80,000 a year.
Wow.
And that was like I wasn't in the highest rank. So if you get up there and there's like dancers that have been there since they were 20 or like 18, 19 or something, and they've been there for 25 years, they could be up to like $200,000 a year if they're doing extra shows. They do like these guesting shows where
Yeah.
they're going around and they're doing like one big gala show or something. They'll get paid for that, and like
So
you
it's
can make up
dependent
to
on a few things.
$200,000. Yeah.
So, like
Yeah.
your time in the company, your time in a certain position,
Your
how many?
rank. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So it's a lot of things to factor in.
there's a few things. I mean, I guess you could be young and just make a lot of money and be famous or something too, but it's just rarer in the ballet company or in the ballet world because it's like when you're in the ballet school, you're focusing only on technique. And when you get hired in the company, you're only working on becoming an artist. So it's like when those two meet in the middle, that's the peak of someone's career, and it just takes time for that to happen.
Right.
You'll see a
Right.
young dancer and they can do all the steps, but they don't have they haven't evolved into a true artist yet. They're not like experienced, and you can just see the intelligence in a dancer when they've been dancing for long enough, and their peak is when the technique and the artistry kind of come together, which is really special.
Right. Did you ever come across, if this hasn't happened to you, that you're getting paid a lot one year and then the next year it got cut for a certain reason and then
We were in a union, so no.
oh, okay.
So our
Okay.
union like had like a nice little there's always a glass ceiling at whatever level that you're at, and so you can start negotiating if you can, but there's nothing really to negotiate against really. So because you're always replaceable, sadly. But so the yeah, the ranking and everything, they're all kind of set, and like every year you get a little bit more. And then depending on your city, there's like a percentage that you will get paid more every year, no matter what. So like even if your pay stays the same, let's say the city is like demands it to be 2.5% higher each year, you'll get 2.5% more of your paycheck, if that
Wow.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
interesting. And then, of course, the perks of being in San Francisco Ballet is that they pay you to, or not they pay you, but they provide all of that physical therapy. Like when I went to Broadway, they they gave you more money, but you had to spend money on your own physical therapy on your own terms. And I think I spent like it was a lot of money that year. Like it would have been the same amount of money if I was still in the ballet, because of the physical therapy that the
Right.
ballet paid for. It was the equivalent of the more money that I was making on Broadway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
what was the hardest thing about your profession as ballerina then, and what was the best thing you got out of it?
The best thing I got out of it was probably the like learning how the show always goes on, and that it's like in life in general, it's like, no, don't sweat the small stuff because it's all small stuff. People, like when you stressed out about one little thing or one step or something, no one else noticed, or if they did, they're going to forget about it. And in the long run, like what really matters is that you like can take what you've learned and apply it to the next things that you're the next ventures.
Yeah.
And then the most difficult thing was definitely for me going through um, puberty in the ballet. It was just rough.
I like
Like I'm
that's honest.
so
That was so it's so
yeah.
realistic.
Yeah, it was just really, I mean, a tough time in any child's life to turn into an adult, but like in a ballet company, it was just hard.
Yeah, no, I bet. I bet. Especially like yeah, going through that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was interesting. But yeah.
Um, did you ever have any serious injuries while being in the ballet?
Yes, I had a lot. Like you can just imagine dancing on your feet, you're gonna get injuries, right? I had really flexible feet, so like they were my arches were really high and whatever. But so if I wore soft point shoes, my ankles would just like sprain or pull too long, like it would just strain or whatever. Um, so yeah, I've pretty much done everything you could possibly do. I'm to your toes for sure. It's
But
like
nothing like
bunions. No, but actually no surgeries, which I'm really grateful for. And there were a couple things, thank you so much. There were a couple things that could have been surgery, but I ended up finding loopholes and finding other ways to fix it. Like the elbow was my MCL. Slipped and fell, and I landed like a cat, like with my hand first,
oh.
and it just popped. My elbow like has this. Who knew you had an MCL in your elbow? I snapped it. Still not there all the way. But I found this machine at a chiropractor's office called the electroacuoscope myopulse, which is the most amazing thing ever. It basically sends this electric frequency into your that vibrates at the same frequency that your healthy ligaments should vibrate at, and it
Okay.
just sort of fuses. It basically jump starts the dead cells, the dead blood cells, um, and like jump starts them to back to life, so that because the problem with injuries that I noticed anyways is that especially in joints, if you get injured, like my elbow, it was got so swollen, and the blood flow all goes to that elbow, and then it can't get out. So the dead blood's supposed to be able to get out of the way so that the new blood can fix it. But when there's too much, it's like a traffic jam. Everything's trying to go save it. It becomes this really bad thing where the blood that's trying to save the dead blood and get everything out of the way, so it gets stuck, and so then it dies, and then you have this black and blue puffy thing, and it won't heal very quickly. So what happened with the acuscope was it just jump started the dead cells back to life, and then everything else kind of started healing around it, which was amazing, and it saved me a year and a half and surgery, which was awesome. I was back on stage in 2 months,
I wonder
and
how
they
much
told
that
me,
machine was.
I know. I've tried to like find out because I'm like, I need one of these
The ice
machines.
machine, the machine.
I know, totally.
Sorry,
Ice
what were they
machines
going to
are
tell
way
you?
cheaper. Oh God, a year and a half. They were saying a year and a half, and I came back and I was on stage in 2 months to the day. So that's
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
You just powered through this stuff, man. Oh my
Hey,
gosh.
hey, you know what? When they tell you no and you don't want to hear it, you just find a way.
Yeah. I feel like for women, well, a lot of women, it's like, you
Yeah.
can't tell me no.
No, and I sometimes think that doctors say that stuff just to do that to you anyways, because they're like, oh, this girl's gonna like find a new way if I tell her that she'll never dance again. Like, 'cause I don't know what it is, but she will probably find it. And I always did.
um, hair and makeup. Did you get that done every day or did you have to
No,
get
you do it
really good at
yourself.
yourself? Okay.
So good at yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
I know my face in the dark, literally. Like, so yeah, we do our own hair and makeup, and we take a lot of pride. We know we know our faces. Like, I think the thing now we're used to seeing like the Kardashians, they always get their hair and makeup done, and it's always professional, and they have someone doing it. We know our faces. It's like our bodies too. We know our bodies. You don't need a doctor to tell you you're injured when you're injured. You're like, yeah, I
Exactly.
know. Okay, so but sometimes you need to know like which bone it is so you can work on it. but like, or ligament or whatever. But for our faces, we know our faces, you know, and like you look in the mirror and you can like learn how to be an artist. Anyone can, a makeup artist, and like your beautiful face. I'm sure you did it by yourself, right?
Yeah, I learned
Yeah.
a little bit off YouTube and then just trial and error.
Right, exactly. And then you just kind of play around and then it becomes fun because
I
you're like, oh,
enjoy
I'm going to
it.
add different colors here and whatever. But yeah, if you kind of know the shape and you know it kind of like looks good on you, then you just do it yourself. And we got really good at it because you do it all the time
Right.
for a living. So, and sometimes multiple times a day. So, so yeah, I always did it. And even if there's a chance to have someone do it for you, I always chose to do my own because I was such a
Yeah.
perfectionist and
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted.
I always think that like one day on my wedding day, I feel like I might want to do my own makeup because I
I
know,
did. Yeah,
yeah,
I
like
did.
you just
My
know
wedding
your
day, I was
face
like,
the
no,
best.
I
I don't want
want
to
to do
trust
my
someone
makeup.
else.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
stressful because then you're like, well, these photos are gonna last forever. I want to look like, and you don't need to look like a different person on your wedding day.
Exactly.
I think that was the key that my mom gave me. She's like, well, he's marrying you for you. You don't need to like
Look like a different person.
change. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
um, how many pairs of point shoes would you say you had
these are
in your
great questions.
yeah, right?
Oh my God.
In the
Point
duration.
shoes, yeah, they only last sometimes an hour, which is people don't realize. And they're
An
like
hour?
$100. Oh yeah, like or sometimes one show. It's
That kind
crazy.
of reminds me of like hockey players. They'll break a stick every couple of games.
I know,
Like,
and you're just like, wait, what? Like how many
why would they only
it's
last one
crazy.
show? Like they're
Well,
too broken
the
in, or
the ballet gives you 12 pairs a month to go through, and I
holy
know
crap.
it's crazy, right? I know. So it was amazing. So I think half of my injuries came from just wearing too soft of point shoes, and that was because in the ballet school we were paying for it ourselves, and like you're wearing these point shoes and you just got them, they're $100 and they take you an hour to sew and doctor up to be like the right everything so they're comfortable and they don't give you blisters, and then you wear them for like one sweaty class and then your feet sweat through the glue and the satin and the canvas and that's all that's there, and then you try and glue them every once in a while. You can use super glue at the tips or something, but then it makes it super loud and noisy and then they're ruined. So, so like to wear them for a show, especially if it's a special show, if you're like a really good part or something, you like make sure you have your best point shoes because they're handmade. So some of them are like, just made perfectly for your foot, and some of them you're like, ooh, this doesn't really like the shape is a little
Yeah,
off or
molds
whatever.
perfectly.
Yeah. So, and they're handmade, so you never really know. And it took me like I would say 10 years to find the right point shoe for my foot because of the trial and error. It's like
Wow.
every, 6 months you order a giant order of point shoes and they come and sometimes they're not the right ones and you just have to wear them to like get through them and then you get your next one and you edit the order and then that comes and it's a little better but it's not perfect. So like over the years it took me so long because there's so many options. They don't like give them to you like on a menu. You have to just sort of figure it out. You like, do you want canvas drawstrings? Do you want elastic drawstrings? Do you want them to be super hard in the tip and not so much in the bunion area, which is awesome? Who knew that that was an option? Like, just the evolution of. I mean, like, if there are girls out there that need help with their point shoes and ordering them, I would love to help them. So, like, reach out to me on social media, and
Yeah,
I'd
that
love
is a
to,
great,
like,
yeah.
because it's the how would you know? I mean, there's just like I'd love to just go back to my younger self and just kind of be like, oh, this is what you're gonna look the best in and feel the best in, and you're not gonna get injured. Like, what are the odds? So,
If only.
if only, yeah. The Repetto actually was what I ended with my career, and they're the best. And they're consistent and amazing. Repetto point shoes.
So did you have a new pair of stage shoes? Sorry, shoes for when
Point,
you're
yeah.
on stage?
Uh, sometimes. I mean, it
Sometimes.
depended. Like on Broadway, that got old really fast. So it's like
I bet.
I don't have time to sew my point shoes all the
Yeah.
time because yeah. So yeah.
Being amongst so many other dancers, females in particular, did you find that most of the girls got along, or did you feel like there was a lot of cattiness that you felt like you were trying to constantly dodge?
Yeah. I was from the family of everyone's friends and we're all like
Trying to work together as a team
yeah,
here.
and my mom would always say, you can't compare yourself to other people. That's not fair to yourself. You have to love yourself for who you are. You're never going to be someone else. So just be the best version of you and appreciate the best version of someone else. And they're just different. And that's great because you want to be unique. And so I was always kind of the friendly, like, I don't know, good job. That was amazing. How did you do that? That was awesome. And like, brava. I was very excited for the success of my friends, especially. And it is a really difficult industry to do that because you are constantly being put up against your best friends for
Right.
roles. And there's only one part or one opening night, and you all want it. And when you don't get it and someone else does that you're good friends with or you're not, you will like you could definitely fall into the category of like, oh, I'm jealous and I hate her, kind of category. And that's just not right. And I always think that the one thing that female empowerment is missing is the fact that we are always put up against each other, like as if, who wore it best. And, like she's prettier than me, so I must not like her. Or, she's going to probably steal my boyfriend or my husband. Or, like we're always being in these positions or being put in
Like
these
one up
positions.
on one another. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like that at all in life, and it really shouldn't be. And I think female empowerment is missing one ingredient, and that is females supporting females. And if we could just realize that empowerment doesn't come from the opposite sex, it like comes from our side, then I think, because that's kind of what guys do, we see the boys clubs and whatever, those things. It's a little bit more challenging when girls don't support each other. And so I always like to focus on the fact that like I supported women always, and I loved and was so grateful when I didn't get a role, because to be honest, looking back, the role doesn't matter as much as your relationship with your colleagues. And if you get a role that you aren't perfect for, it could actually ruin your career because people are actually seeing you doing something that you're not really that good at, and then they might not cast you in something that you could have been good at. So in that
Good point.
industry, it's tough to be in a position where you're always going to try and be a chameleon in an acting or a ballet world role or something. But you're always going to try and become the perfect person for that part. But really, the casting directors will all tell you they cast people that are themselves generally. So it's like acting is there are some character actors. We've got like people like Meryl Streep who can play a bunch of different things, but you see people like Jennifer Aniston, she that's her, like she plays herself for the
In a
most
lot.
part
Yeah.
in a lot of the things that she does. So casting is kind of mostly like that, like the majority of the things that I've done, it's like I was perfect for the part and I didn't have to change.
Good. That's good to
Yeah.
hear. Well, I
Right.
guess a little bit on the flip side, say you're a lead in a ballet and you're with a male and there's no chemistry, or you're finding it hard to kind of like, bond on stage. Like what would that look like? Do you just fake it till you make it, or
Yeah, you do. You just fake it to make
you're
it.
like, I'm
It's
being
like, yeah.
honest.
Oh God, you just have to fake it. And sometimes it's real hard. I'm a really good actress for some of the roles that I've done with the guys that I've danced with or something, and they're just awful. And you're just like, just fake it. You just
Right.
have to fake it. Yeah.
So, do you watch any dance movies? Have you watched like
Yeah, I mean, when I was little, I watched them all, and nowadays I don't like to watch it as much as do it. So I think that's been the evolution of my watching dance
Okay,
films.
because I was gonna ask how accurate Black Swan is.
Ooh, accurate is it's not accurate because there's not one person with well, there is one girl that I know, but I won't go into that. There's not one girl usually that has all of those problems
Okay.
in one character, right? Like
Okay.
they're spread out. It's like take Black Swan and just rip her up into a bunch of pieces and just like that's the
Amongst
ballet. It's like
everybody there.
yeah, and the one
Okay.
little thing here and there. It can be pretty dark, but I always choose like the bright side of life because it was so much easier. It's the only way you can get through it. Otherwise, it's just dark.
And what
But
would you say dance brought you? Is it freedom, creativity, growth?
I think growth because the freedom and creativity has actually become the biggest focus now that I'm a singer-songwriter and I have the ballet and the Broadway behind me. The freedom and creativity is now like I feel like I'm in the driver's seat of my career for the first time, and or I guess a better metaphor would be I'm the artist, I am the paint, I am the canvas. And it feels so lovely to actually just have that freedom to do whatever I want on that piece of canvas. And as a ballerina, as a professional ballerina, you're the car, but somebody else is kind of always steering it the way that they need it to be steered. I mean, it's like, but you're what at the end of the day, you are on stage by yourself. You get the applause, you get all the stuff, but you're doing someone else's choreography. You are dancing someone else's, storyline or singing the lyrics from someone else. And so it's not really yours, but you make it your own. That's part of being an artist in that world. But I think the growth, I couldn't have done what I'm doing now if I
Without
hadn't
it.
had that experience. Yeah. So growth.
Well said. Well said. So let's move on to Broadway talk. How
Yes.
did you make it to Broadway? Take us through.
Okay. So the Broadway world it was 8 years before I made it to Broadway. This is how I'm going to set this story. I had to audition with San Francisco Ballerinas for this role in oh my God, in West Side Story Suite, not American in Paris, in West Side Story Suite, which is a shortened version of West Side Story. And I guess there's only one role that really had singing in it. It was the Anita role. So it was like the America song, which is super fun. And um, they had everyone audition for this role, and I ended up getting it, and I got to do opening night, and I got this huge standing ovation, and the original from the movie like was there, and it was just like amazing to
That's
like
incredible.
have this like, oh my God, I can sing, I guess. Like it was so crazy because breaking the silence as a ballerina was just frightening on so many levels. And then when it went well, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, wait, this could be like everyone's just like we're going to lose her to Broadway. And I was 19, I think, and I was like, no, you're not losing me to Broadway, because I knew it wasn't a revolving door. It was like if I leave to go to Broadway, I'm never going to come back to do ballet, and there's so much more I want to do in ballet. So I was like,
You're like,
I'm
not
not
yet.
leaving. Yeah, it's not like I was going to do that thing. Like there was an exit door and there wasn't an entrance. So I was like,
Back in.
I'm staying in here. So that night in the audience, this choreographer director, um, Christopher Wheeldon, was in the audience, and when he was casting the show on Broadway for American in Paris, he remembered that night and asked me to be in the show. Like it was really cool to kind of, because that was 8 years before the show on Broadway opened. So he basically remembered, like, so my audition was, 8 years, I guess. But so when it
Wow.
actually happened, they called me to audition for the lead. And I was like, yeah, all I have to do is learn a French accent. Yeah, like, no, I didn't take any real acting lessons. I didn't really prepare for this. I was like, all I have to do is just stand here and read lines and sound French. And I already have the ballet. I look kind of like Leslie Crone. So I'm like, I'm just going to get the part. It's great. And I didn't. And
Is that a
they,
hard pill to swallow?
no, because I didn't know I didn't get it. It was like they just don't tell you on Broadway when you don't get something. They just don't call you. And so I was like, oh, they'll call. And I remember being like, when I get the lead on Broadway, I'm going to buy myself a Chanel bag. Or like when I perform on Broadway, I'm going to buy myself a Chanel bag because it's French and da da da. And um and then I didn't get the part, but I didn't know that. And so I emailed the casting director, and I asked her if I was getting the part, and she was like, well, we're kind of considering you for the ensemble. And I was like, no, I'm not leaving for an ensemble part. I said no. And I was still expecting the lead to happen, and she's like, well, like a month later something was like, well, we already cast the lead, so that's fine that you don't want to be in the show. And I was kind of like, yeah, that's fine, like, oh, I don't know. So I tell my Master Yoda massage therapist, who has these like one-liners sometimes that are just amazing, and I told him about the Chanel bag. It's like, well, when I get to Broadway, I'm going to buy this Chanel bag. He goes, live as if you've already achieved your dreams. And I was like, so you're telling me like to go buy that Chanel bag? Yeah. And he's like, sure, whatever, that's your interpretation. Okay. So I went out, I found it online, I ordered the Chanel bag. The day that the Chanel bag came in the mail, I get a call and an email from the casting director asking me to be in the show. I was the last person that they were casting in the show because they needed ballerinas. And she was like, this was like a hard sell for her, which is really sweet of her to even do this. But she's like, I've worked on so many shows. She's the top casting director in New York. Like she's insane. And I
Wow.
had no idea what I was doing, so I was kind of like playing hard to get, and I'm so stupid for that. But so the casting director's like, this show is going to be so spectacular. It's taken us 2 years to cast it. You're our last person. We need you because we need a ballerina who can sing. And the music like director just saw your vocal tape and was pissed at the director for not showing this to us sooner, like. And so it was really funny. So she's like making this hard sell, and I was kind of like, well, I today's like first day back in the ballet. I'm not sure if I can get out of my contract. She had the director call me, and while I was on the phone with the director, my Chanel bag arrived in the mail, and I accepted the role on Broadway. It was
Wait,
like
so
the
did you get the
coolest
lead?
thing ever. I did not get the lead yet. So I got
Okay.
I was in the original ensemble, which was awesome. It was like the easiest, amazing transition ever for me. Like
Okay.
to I took a leave of absence from the ballet. I could come back if I wanted to, which, I'll get to that in a second. But
Okay.
I did the opening in Paris, and then we did it in New York, and it was like just dreamy. The whole thing was amazing. And then I got the lead uh, understudy halfway through the run or something. And that's when I was about to go back to the ballet. And I was like, you know what? I'm loving Broadway. I want to do the lead. And I ended up staying on Broadway, um, and left the ballet because I wanted to do the lead role on Broadway, which I did, which is really cool.
Wow. So
Yeah.
how long was that duration of time from you going from the ensemble to the understudy till finally getting the lead? Because if you went back to the ballet, you wouldn't have got the
No,
lead, right? So,
no. Yeah. It was um it was when we opened was in, I think, April of 2000. It was 4 years, and we closed 2015 maybe. No, 14,
okay.
2014, I think. I'm really bad with dates these
That's
days
okay. It was
because
a
it's
while
like
ago too, so you're
2020.
probably
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I know. I'm like, it was
it's
2014,
all
I
a
think.
blur.
Yeah, it's kind of a blur, but I think it's 2014 is when we opened, and then we closed in 20. I want to say 16, and um, and I did it towards the end of the run, so it was like a long run. I mean, like we did we did like 700 shows before I got the lead role. Like it was
Wow.
like a lot.
So, clarification on one part. So when you were waiting for the call and they called you to offer the ensemble and you accepted, but you didn't get the lead, was that just as good of a part? Or
It
like,
was because it was a
okay.
original cast is always huge because then when they do it on tour or
Okay.
something, it's always going to be your part. And
Okay.
the director, he is so amazing at getting the best out of people and like highlighting that. So every single person in the show had their like strengths, and he would like put that in the front of the show in certain parts. And so you had like these little, moments where you could really shine, and then he'd give that to everyone. So it was really special to actually be in the original production. It was so fun. Oh my
Seems
God. Being
very
on Broadway is
different.
so fun.
I was gonna, it seems like the dynamic was very different from the ballet
Yeah.
world.
Well,
Like
going
such a
from,
refreshing.
yeah, so refreshing. And like the dynamics of going from the silent world of ballet to the loudest world ever, it was like just so great. It opened up a whole can of worms, and, now I can't shut up. So
So what was your schedule like being a Broadway performer now compared to the ballet?
it was interesting at the beginning. The rehearsal schedules are kind of rigorous. Like right before you open the show, there's like this thing, I think they call it 10 out of 12, 10 days in of 12 hours a day.
Whew.
And it was no one told me about that before. I mean, not that I wouldn't have signed my contract, but like it just no preparation. I was like, you're kidding, right? Like no one would ever work 12 hours a day. That's ridiculous, especially dancing and like acting and stuff. I'm like, yeah, right. And then no, we 10 out of 12, 10 days of 12 hours a day. And I've done that a few times in my career now, and it is always hard.
Seems
No
very
matter which way you
draining.
slide, yeah, it's exhausting, and it's just the show itself is so physically demanding, and then the theaters are different. So the show, just doing the show is hard, but like then you have stairs to get from the dressing room to the stage, and there's no crossover, so you can't stay on stage. So it was It was a lot of stairs, 38 flights of stairs. There's spiral metal stairs
Oh my
per
God, I'd die.
show, and quick changes that were so fast and stressful because it's not just your quick change, there's other people quick changing, and there's costumes flying around, but then there's set pieces that could murder you, like, and roll over your feet while you're changing, like, so many
So many like
elements.
looking and
Oh,
changing
and
and
there's always new people backstage that kind of like, because it was fast moving show. So it was like, if there's someone new, it's like, watch out for the new person because it's like you could die. Like, it was so bad. Oh my God.
you could die.
You could die. It was insane. So
So
yeah.
using your voice a lot, being on Broadway, were you like drinking a lot of teas now and
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
taking like you're taking care of your physical health like you were saying for the ballet, but now you have a whole other
I
ball game to deal with.
I didn't know how to breathe, it turns out. So I ended
Oh,
up going to an acting class, and she goes, "You're not breathing properly." And I was like, "Well, maybe it has something to do with being like a fat ballerina who was wearing like corsets that
all
were
her
way too
life.
tight." Yeah. So I was like, "We're chest breathers. We're not like belly breathers." And she's like, "Well, if you're a chest breather, you're going to dry out your throat. That's why you're losing your voice all the time." And I was always hoarse. I always sounded like I had a cold, kind of, because it was just like a lot of singing. I was breathing incorrectly. I was dancing still, so you have to engage your core, but there's a way to learn how to breathe, to do all of the above, to like hold your core, still belly breathe.
Wow.
It was crazy. So I ended up taking Alexander technique classes, and I'll never forget calling my mom, like, "Mom, I just paid someone $80 to teach me how to breathe. Like, am I getting duped?" I
Am
was like, "Oh my God, what just
I
happened?"
getting duped?
Oh, so I definitely, my Alexander technique teacher was amazing in just helping me learn how to breathe, which helped me learn how to sing. And then I had singing coaches that were helping me through all of that as well. And it was amazing. Yeah. The learning how, again, being a dry sponge in life, just always wanting to learn more, it's really important.
And how many years, sorry, were you on Broadway again?
It was like 3 years total.
Okay, and that one toured
Yeah.
around the world as well.
Well, I didn't do the tour. I can't imagine doing the tour. The girls and guys that did that tour and they traveled on their day off, like, I just can't. It was so hard
That is a
already.
lot.
So yeah, I did not do the tour. I just did
Okay.
New York.
So, what is it like being a singer and songwriter?
Oh, it's so inspiring and empowering. Like, just you get inspired by everything, first of all. And now that I'm in control of it, it's empowering. So it's really like up to me. If it is to be, it's up to me. And becoming Empress was really cool as well because it was just learning how to be the ruler over my own life and the creator of my own happiness and not worrying about what other people thought or what other people's tastes are, and just kind of finding my own.
So, is that how you
And
came up with the name?
yeah, and it
Okay.
was it was like this self-coronation, if you will, and it was like, there's so much insecurity that goes within a crown, and I know because I've worn a million of them in my careers. But it's really interesting because when you look at like a crown that a king and queen wears, it's given to them by a kingdom. So the king and queen do not own it, and it's going to be given to the next person after they're gone. So there's always this insecurity because they don't own it. Everyone needs something from them. They're always like, kind of having to point outwardly, and it's never like internal
Right.
empowerment and like strength. And there's just, someone's we've seen it in history, off with their head, and then it's like on to the next head. So
It's true.
it's just really interesting to kind of think about how different the world would react if everybody just owned their own crown and
Right.
wore like and crowned themselves. And so I kind of wanted to take this approach with Empress and just be like, you know what? I don't need to worry about anything else. I am the creator of my happiness, and I am like all the gemstones that I've gathered throughout my careers, I can kind of put them in one place and like take away the label of being just a ballerina or just a Broadway actress or just a singer-songwriter. I just could like kind of build my own empire around all the things that I know and kind of create my own space. And so if I could inspire other people to do that too, it's like, that's awesome. Even one
Absolutely.
person.
So, oh, what was I going to say? I just like lost my train of thought.
No, it's great.
Why are you starting your own leopard record label to support? I just like merge words to leopard record label to support women in music.
Well, I figured that empowerment doesn't come from the opposite sex, it comes from within.
Right, you did
And
mention that.
but that was kind of like the main, like, it was just there's not very many of the record labels out there run by females, and then supporting females. So if you look, online and you see all of these record labels now that they're starting to pop up that are female run, it's like they're the predominantly men on the record label. And so I kind of wanted to make a place for Empress, first of all, like build record label that would support me so that I could be the guinea pig and like figure out what I needed to create like the art that I wanted to create, and then take that formula and just kind of give it to other women in music. And it's not to exclude men, it's just to kind of start supporting women and kind of paving that path, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that is so good of you to take that on, because I feel
Thanks.
like there definitely is a gap in the record label market, if you want to say, in
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah, and females are like we love listening to women, in music, but it's just it's harder to get into. There's less support, and then there are the sharks, there's a lot of guys that will take advantage of a young woman, and that just isn't okay in a lot of ways. And so kind of being there for women in music is like that was my main focus.
And when did you start thinking about doing all this? Was this when you were done the ballet and Broadway, or was this
Yeah.
kind of floating around your head beforehand?
Good question. Yeah, this has all been like in the past 3 years, I would say.
Okay.
So like when I left the Broadway show, I slept for like 6 months. I was so tired all the time. I was like, oh my God,
You
so tired.
deserve it.
I know. I was like really, I had a friend that like took me out to lunch one day, and I was like, I just woke up, and he goes, no, you need to start waking up earlier. You have to do something. I was like, yeah, but I'm so tired all the time. He's like, you've had 6 months. You're fine. Like,
You're like,
stop.
time to get back into it, to
Yeah.
something.
But it was funny because I was already doing music, like the crossover before I left Broadway. That was already a crossover. But the yeah, it was just interesting because the evolution of turning into Empress was like, I don't know, it's the past couple years. And then when I dream, like when I was 7, I dream like that at first, where it's super broad strokes, and then I start getting in. Now that I've learned how to actually, like, I have like a formula of dreaming, is like, is essentially to dream big and then ask yourself if you're dreaming big enough, and then edit as you go so that it gets clearer and clearer and clearer. Because if you don't have like a crystal clear vision of your goal, then how are you going to find it, and how are you going to achieve that? And I've always achieved everything, but like that I've set my mind to. But the thing is that once I got there, sometimes it wasn't what I thought it would be, because I dreamed about it when I was 7 and I didn't know about politics and the, weight and
Right.
all of these things. So knowing what I know now, I dream and I let it be vague and like really flowy at first, and then I start getting it into like more of a structured, like, okay, well, what does that actually look like? And if I joined a record label, would I have the freedom like, I want to have freedom in this industry, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't do the same things that I did in the past that didn't work for me. So creating this record label was an accumulation of the past couple years of just asking myself, am I dreaming big enough?
And what is the record label called?
Stardust World Productions.
I love
There's
it.
Yeah, I just love the idea of like we're all stardust, which is kind of a unique idea anyways, is that everything's just sort of like vibrating atoms, and it's no different than stardust. And so each one of us has a little piece of stardust in us. So I thought that was cool. Creating our own world,
Have
Stardust
you
World.
already signed people?
I've not. I'm still the only one. So it's still
Okay.
new. It's new enough. And we need to
Build,
get Empress built up and have the right team and everything before I can kind of really feel like
bring
I
on
can
others.
give something that would be meaningful to another artist.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when did you start writing music?
I started writing when I was 4, like 4 years old on the piano, just the piano. And then, all the lessons and things, I was just like, I learned how to kind of sight read and do musical theory and stuff from my Mary Poppins teacher. And then I started writing with lyrics after I learned I could sing, because I didn't know I could sing. I had never sung before the West Side Story suite at the ballet. Um, yeah, that was, I had never sung Happy Birthday in front of my family. Like it was crazy. So once I did that, once I broke that ice, I started writing music with lyrics, and then that became I was a closeted singer-songwriter for years because I didn't think anyone would ever understand my lyrics. And once I started playing it for a couple people, they were like, they understood it, and it was like very empowering for me to just be like, oh, I'm not the only one who feels this way about things, anything. And so just sharing it has become like it's very new, to be honest. Like I really wasn't a singer-songwriter until the past like 5 years or so.
Wow. So do you have your own vocal coach and everything?
I did in New York. I haven't been seeing them, obviously, I mean, the pandemic. I'm sure we could do online stuff, which is fine. But for the most part, I had like 4 years of vocal training, like a couple times a week. So, and different teachers, like a very Broadway teacher, like Broadway oriented teacher who just teaches you like the best technique, but it's not as helpful sometimes in the musical theater.
Right.
Sorry, in pop music. Musical theater is just so different than pop. So then I started seeing a vocal coach who sees a lot of celebrities in the pop music industry in
Like
New York.
who?
I can't say, she's under an NDA, but like,
Okay. It's a she. That's
yeah,
good enough.
it's a she.
She's relevant to today's day and age, I
She
assume.
is very
Okay.
much so. Yeah, I mean,
Very cool.
you'd name anyone and I'd be like, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So anyway,
Okay, cool. Cool,
she's
cool, cool.
amazing. Yeah, but she's under NDA. Like I know only because, I've been going to her forever. We gossip all the time.
um, I lost my train of thought again. It was about
Okay.
singing. Oh, you're Mary Poppins teacher. Do you still talk
Yeah.
to her to this day?
Oh my gosh, I have been trying to get in touch with her. She's not on social media at all, but her
She's
daughter
old
is.
school.
I know, she's so old school. I love her to death. We used to do these like fun little she'd like make these little bows and things and put them on kites for like every hour that we'd practice. Like it was so cute. She's so adorable. But I wrote her a love letter recently, like because it was her birthday, and I found
Like a
out through her
physical one.
daughter, physical one, and I had to send it to her like old school snail mail. And yeah, she's still teaching and she's still doing it, and she's been the reason why I'm in music and why I feel comfortable, at
Right.
a keyboard and I can speak the language and stuff. So it's really cool. Grateful for her. Pam. Oh, loved her.
Pam, my heart.
Pam.
I had another music question. Oh,
Nice.
your
Yeah.
genre. Your genre. Is it more
Yeah.
pop?
I would say it's pop. My producer is in the pop world. Like he is the one that it's hard to work around his schedule sometimes, but he does
Mm-hmm.
the vocal engineering for um, everyone. Like his Grammy nominations are Beyonce and Justin Bieber. So like if that gives you an idea of like who he's
Wow.
working with. So with that being said, he actually is an incredible guy. That opens the door for women in the music industry and protects us, and like really is just a great
That's
advocate
comfortable.
for, yeah, he's just an amazing human being, and I'm so grateful to work with him. So he's pop, and that's kind of the direction we've been going in, which is super fun for me because I've never really been that cool, but like I feel cool whenever
You're
I'm
like,
with him.
yeah, I can definitely take this lifestyle and this
Yeah,
this
for
genre.
sure. Yeah, so pop is the direction that we're headed.
Okay. Would you be open to other?
Of course, yeah, because I love music. So it's, and the beauty of music is that, pop is this huge platform. It's sort of similar to that tabletop of the ballet
Mm-hmm.
world. So like if you can do pop, then you can kind of like change it up and do like a country song here and there. And then like, you have a hip hop track,
Yeah.
and then
It's
you've
like
got
Taylor
these
Swift
like,
started country, like her very,
yeah,
very early albums, and then now it's
totally.
pretty much pop.
Yeah, and it's pop, and then it goes to like indie song or singer songwriter. Like her last album was so beautiful, but it wasn't like anything she's ever done before. So you can kind of evolve from wherever you've come from. Like I started in the singer songwriter genre, but I always wanted to be like in sparkly costumes with the big thing, and it just that those don't fit,
Yeah, yeah, I
so
get it
so
completely.
it's like, so I'm going for pop because you can do that, the singer-songwriter thing, but in a sparkly costume,
Right,
tiaras and
right.
stuff.
So let's move on to your personal life a little bit. So when
Yeah.
did you meet your husband and how has he taken your whole artistic path? And what does he do?
He's an attorney
Oh,
and
wow.
he's amazing. I know. It's like opposites attract, and like he and I are opposites, but we come together so perfectly because we balance each other out. Where like I'd come home and be like, oh gosh, I like didn't do this turn right, and he's like, oh, and I wrote this horrible email, and we'd just like laugh at each other, and be like, okay, okay.
That's
So it
cute.
keeps you kind of balanced. And I met him at the opening night of the ballet 10 years ago, and I saw him from across the room, and I literally like looked at my girlfriend and I was like, "Ugh, all the good guys are taken at these things. We're never going to meet someone like him." And I pointed at him, and then our groups collided, and this is funny. He was with a girl in a red dress, and I was like, "Yep, see, told ya." Like that's how it happens. Everyone comes with a date, even if they're not serious, and you're not going to meet a guy at these things. So I was dressed up in a gown. He's in a tuxedo. He looked so handsome. And at some point, our groups really collided in the smaller, like there were different rooms in we do it in the city hall. So there's all these little pockets. So our group collided, and my my now husband, he like turned around with two glasses of champagne, and I was like, oh, like my heart melted. And I remember just talking to him for a little while, but I was like, oh, I can do the math. Like he's two glasses, it's not one, right? So, and he's not giving one to me, so let's let him go back into the sea, like. So I go, hey, do you need to get that to your girlfriend before it gets warm? Super blunt, of course. And he goes, he goes, well, I'm not, no, she's not my girlfriend. And I was kind of like, I mean, as of now, like now you're just being a jerk. So get out of my way. I just want to get my champagne and move on with my life because I can't have you. And he like motions towards her, and then like he like gets stuck like looking over towards the corner, and I kind of like follow his glance. And I turn around, and my best friend Luke was making out with the girl in the red dress, and I was like, oh, they really aren't dating. Like this is like he wasn't lying. Okay, great. So I think I took the glass of champagne out of his hand. I was like, cheers. And it was like forever, that was amazing. And
I
then
love that story.
I know. And then cherry topper on all of it, Luke came out of the closet like a week later. So if it had happened like a week earlier, he would have been gay by then, and he wouldn't have been trying to make out with this girl. And I might have never had my husband because I would have just assumed that that was his
Yeah.
girlfriend. And
Yeah.
they were best friends. I have to tell you about the girl in the red dress because she is now one of our best friends. Love her to death. She had just broken up with her boyfriend, asked another friend who wasn't in town, who said, hey, call Rob. And Rob like was he was like, yeah, sure, I'll go with you. It's like she had an extra ticket. It was easy. It was a big
Oh,
group of
so it's one
friends.
of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, I was wrong. I did find a man of my dreams at those things, and we
Oh,
lived forever,
was this
happily ever
after the ballet? Like, how
after.
did,
This is like
okay.
an after party. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
No, I wouldn't be
cool.
drinking champagne before a performance.
I didn't think so, but I was like lost in the translation of did you guys all like change out of your ballet outfits and then go
Yes.
put on like
Yeah.
cocktail up? Well, not cocktail outfits, but like
Totally. It was
evening
like the
gowns.
opening night gala. It's super fancy, where like these gorgeous gowns, and everyone's all like dressed up, and it's gorgeous and fancy and stuff. And so it was literally like meeting my Prince Charming at a ball.
That is so sweet. So like you guys have been together ever since then.
Yeah, yeah. It was like right when I met him, I was like, yeah, he like checks all the boxes, and not only that, but he's more. He was just the best person I've ever met, and he's my best friend, and he's my husband, and oh
Oh,
God,
I'm
just
gonna get
he's the
teary
best.
eyed, and I don't even know him, or what your relationship is like. But I can imagine it's
No,
literally
he's
like a
the
Disney movie.
best. Yeah, no, he really is, and he's so supportive. And like when I was thinking about going to Broadway, I was like, I remember him saying, because I just felt really weird about it, because we'd just gotten married, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm moving to New York, and what's gonna happen to us? And he was like, you have to go. This is like, I'm here to support you. We're fine. So he was traveling, commuting back and forth from like San Francisco to New York
For you?
every month for me for like years. It was so nice. I mean, like, never complained about it once. God, if I did that trip one time, I'd have been like, you know how much I love you.
Yeah, women.
I mean, it was rough. I can't believe. I mean, he'd do some red eyes. He'd send me red roses every weekend. The girls in the dressing room would be like, "Seriously, he's perfect." I'd be like, "Yeah, but I never see him, so I miss him." So he brings me flowers, like Task Rabbit or something. It was so cute.
That's so
Um,
cute. So he never moved from city to city, kind of staying in one spot and would just visit you?
Kind of both. Like he lived in both places, but he had to be in San Francisco for work and I had to be in New York for work, and so we just made it work. We had this deal where it was like, hey, we never go to bed without calling each other and saying goodnight. We had like the Life 360 app so we could see where we were all the time to make sure we were safe and everything, and like we just communicated a lot. It was like actually a really fun time in our marriage because like we were forced to go from, like I love hugs and I love like, I mean, I'm a dancer, so physicality is like one way to show love, but verbal, like to actually talk and be like connected through memories of just like talking to each other all the time. That was kind of special. And then when I'd see him, it was like, so excited. So that's nice to have a little absence makes the heart grow fonder kind of
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it
And
was good.
how long have you been married for?
We've been married for 8 years now, which is so great. It's been
Wow.
really fun. Yeah.
Oh, my heart. Um, okay. This is going to be a hard one, but which profession, I can't even ask you which one your favorite one was, but
Oh,
like
yeah.
between Broadway and the ballet?
Oh, I think, well, between Broadway and the ballet, I think I had more. Oh, God, that's really hard, actually. Yeah, because there's ups and downs for both. So
Would
I'm
you have
like,
said one maybe earlier in your life and now?
yeah, like I could only have done ballet when I did ballet. If I had done them in reverse, it wouldn't have happened. I just couldn't have
Okay.
done it. It was just so physically and mentally demanding in the ballet. But and Broadway was just physically demanding and not as mentally and emotionally draining. It was just beautiful. I don't know. I loved Broadway. Broadway was so fun. But ballet was a dream come true. So there's like, and Broadway was too, but
Different,
becoming like a ballerina and your favorite ballet company was like kind of a big deal.
for
I had no
sure.
idea what I was doing on Broadway. And now that I look back, I'm like, wow, we were nominated for like 12 Tony Awards. Like we had, and we won a bunch. And like, it was like it was just a whirlwind. We had celebrities coming every night to see our show. And like, it was just amazing to like be a part of a production that was so well received on Broadway, because that doesn't happen all the
Absolutely.
time, but I didn't know that didn't happen all the time. So there's that.
What performers or choreographers have been the most influential to you over your career?
Christopher Wheeldon was huge for me because I danced with him for 11 years of the ballet years, and then I did the Broadway show, and then I did another show with him called Brigadoon, and like he's just always been the one that like clicked with me, and I clicked with him and his style and everything. So I think Christopher Wheeldon is like the best choreographer in the world, in my opinion, because he's so musically oriented and he's so he's got the best eye. He's great at storytelling. He's just really an artist. And I'm really grateful that I got to work with him, um, for so many years, like 15 years or something crazy. So super grateful for Chris. And then the biggest opportunities I had was with this guy, Val Caniparoli, and he always put me in the lead roles in his ballets, and that's what helped me get seen for other things that like, so you always have to give thanks to the ones that like saw you before anyone else did,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely.
So
Those are
yeah.
both really good answers. Um, what's the most common misconception about dancers that you think people had? If it was like food
uh
related or if it
Yeah,
was
food
like,
related.
yeah,
It's definitely food. It's like we'd make jokes sometimes, like my husband and I would be like, "Oh, she eats anything she wants on Tuesdays." And like we would laugh and everyone would be like, "Is she serious?" And we're like, "No, no." They're like, "No, it's not. No, we're making light of this." It's like because everyone just assumes that I have an eating disorder always. They're like, "Oh, she's
that is
ballerina."
so awful.
So yeah, it's just, and a lot of them do, but I didn't, and I'm really proud of that. And I you know, I know it's not something to make fun of, but when you survive that world, you have to find some happy, like some laughter
Absolutely.
in the pain, because it's just otherwise you will not survive.
So, with saying that, what's your guilty pleasure for food?
Ooh, definitely. I would say cheese and
Mm.
wine.
What
Does
kind
wine
of
count
cheese and
for
what kind of wine?
Okay, so I am a big fan of raw cheddar cheese. They
Okay.
have it like, oh God, it's so good. It's like whole milk, raw milk cheese. Oh my God, it's the best. That was like my guilty pleasure when I was a raw foodist too. I was like, hey, it's still raw. Like, it's great. It's got all the enzymes and things. It's probably not the best for me in like the consumption that I have, like the proportions and everything. But okay, so there's that, and then wine. I love anything wine or champagne.
Are you
I'm
red or
more of
white?
like I've switched to be more of a white rosé drinker, which is interesting because I was only red for so long, and then I realized that my teeth were not getting cute, and like I think that switched. It's like,
Do you get them
ooh,
whitened?
purple teeth. I whiten them like a couple times a year, but like yeah, it was like purple teeth just are not cute when you're out to dinner or something. You smile and you're like, oh no, oh God. So yeah.
That is
Anyway,
so funny. Did you ever consider another career not in the creative field at all?
yeah, I did. I think I would have been an astrologist, or like not an
Wow.
astrologist, but like actually study, I don't know, study the universe. And like I definitely have always loved, we always had an outdoor hot tub in Tahoe, and it's so high. The elevation isn't like ridiculously high, but it's like 7 or 8 thousand feet, and or maybe 6 to 7 thousand feet, somewhere in there. And we'd just lay out in the hot tub and just like look up at the stars. And as a kid, I was just like, that is the most, like, you could never get tired of looking at the stars. And I kind of wish I knew what I was looking at. And just like looking through telescopes a few times in my life, I'm like, yeah, I could totally do this. This is something that I'd love to study.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
maybe that's how I came up with Stardust World
I was just
Productions.
gonna say that. I was like, there has to be
Yeah,
some correlation there.
yeah, interesting. Anyway.
What are I feel like I already asked this one, but some mistakes that you've made earlier in your career that you feel like you've
um
learned from it or would go about differently in the future?
let's see, I would say, oh, I thought about a really good answer to this once, and I was like, oh, I should remember this because this will come up someday, and I knew, at some point it would,
Did
and
it
now
come
I
up?
it's like gone. Um, mistakes that I've made was probably, mm, it's really funny because I actually feel like I'd choose, not choose. I was born with this like this thing that my dad gave me. It's called loser's amnesia, and I forget all of the mistakes I make, which might not be a good thing. But my dad will literally like we'll be playing tennis or something, and he'll lose badly, and he'll come home and he'll be like, God, I played so good today. And you're like, what? No, you lost. Like it was really bad. But he's like, yeah, but my shots were amazing. So that I feel like we all grew up with this, and then now it's become my thing too. I'm like, yeah, no mistakes. I didn't make any mistakes. Like there were no mistakes. Everything was meant to be. There were um there were paths that I chose to take that I'm proud of now, and they made me who I am now. So yeah, I guess the best answer is that I have loser's amnesia and I don't remember any mistakes that I've made.
Okay.
Might not be a
Okay,
good
I'll
thing.
take it. Are there any other hobbies and interests that you have?
Yes, I would say I love playing pickleball. I love like, have you ever played pickleball?
No, but I know what it is. I only
Oh
found
my
out
God.
what this was like recently in the last couple of years.
So fun. It's everything I always wanted tennis to be. You can just whack the ball. It's a wiffle ball, so it never goes out. It's amazing. So pickleball has been amazing. And my hobbies, I guess, are taking walks and gardening these days, which is fun.
Okay. Some nice COVID safe
I know, right?
activities.
God, totally. I'm like, I should be learning a new instrument or something, but no.
Are you still playing the piano?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what's next for you?
We are releasing, okay, myself and I, Empress is
Me,
releasing.
myself, and I are.
I know, exactly. Um, I'm releasing a bunch of new music and music videos coming out in November, which I'm super excited about. And I just like want to start getting just releasing more. I think this time, especially this year, we've been just accumulating so much artistic content, and so I'm excited to like kind of give it to the world. You know, I'm a perfectionist, so I have to wait until it's like right, and I've thought about it and
Absolutely.
had time to listen a million times, and then it's like, okay, I'm ready. You
Yeah,
know, and it's like I put way the people say I'm way too precious with it, but I think it's once it's out forever, and you know, you're kind of that's it. So, so yeah, so I'm excited to release some new music.
that's good to hear.
Yay.
So the last question that I usually ask is, are you happy with the direction of life taken? Like the path you have been on this far and you're trekking forward.
That's such a beautiful question. Yes, I am so grateful for everything that's happened, all of the good and bad, everything that now that you have more perspective, like when it happens to you, sometimes you have no perspective on it, but then once you have a little distance from it, you can see it clearer. And I'm really grateful for all the ups and downs that I've had. And yes, I'm really happy to be on this path. And it's a chosen path, but it took me a while to choose it. So, yes.
Wonderful. Well, do you have anything else to add?
I guess just if you want to talk with me about anything that we just talked about, find me on like social media or something on empress.music is my Instagram handle. You can find me on
So
YouTube as
people can DM you.
Empress. Yeah, exactly. Like if you have any questions about point shoes or what it's like on Broadway or what I eat on a daily basis or what music I'm releasing next or whatever, just reach out to me and DM me on my social media because I love to hear from people and help people in things that I wish I could have helped myself in, you know, when I was there.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you were all able to take something away from Shannon's incredible journey. Don't forget to check her out on all social media platforms, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.